I checked every single corner of every single book, every single research, whatever I've done. I've gone to the dead end. I've gone to the dead end of the ocean, bottom, and the bank of the ocean of the financial literacy. And then after searching for a lot of period of time, I'm not able to find even one single law that is going to benefit bottom 90%. And not even one single law is there. Not even one single law that is going to benefit the labor who is going to just enjoy his salary. And that's the reason the salaries, the digital cash, the salaries are going to be digitally sacrificed. The salaries are going to be ritually sacrificed inside the banks. So that's the reason we need to understand this entire gamble of this entire financial literature, this financial literacy. Okay, whatever they have scripted into the bank accounts, into the economic, into the rules books of the economics, it has been done in order to preserve the asses, in order to preserve the skins of the top 10 percentage, by sacrificing, by ritually sacrificing bottom 90% cow. The bottom, okay, the rules of the jungle are written by the snakes and the foxes. The rules of the jungle are written by the rules of the jungle are written by the snakes and the foxes. And those snakes and foxes have written the rules to in order to benefit the top 10 percentage, not the bottom 90. And here the bottom 90% are the cows and the innocent cows and innocent rabbits. And that's the reason the ritual sacrifice of the cows and the rabbits are going to take place inside the jungle in order to feed the cows, in order to feed the foxes and the snakes inside the jungle. And you need to understand one thing in this rule, in this game, you are always going to lose because the treadmill effect goes there. There are many effects. There are many effects in economics. There are many effects in economics. Okay, if I tell you, okay, if I tell you one day, if I go on telling you, okay, if I go on telling you, you will lose your. There are many effects. Cantillon effect, the snowball effect. Cantillon effect, snowball effect. The wealth snowball, and at the same point of time, Matthew effect. And then, okay, what? Okay, 1 minute. All of these effects are there. Okay, you know what? It's exactly Hawthorne effect, endowment effect, January effect, Diderot effect, network effect, Fisher effect, butterfly effect, Cobra effect, Cobra effect. Okay, domino effect, contagion effects, feedback loops, macro effect, macroeconomic, and black swan events. Okay, so all these things are there. All these things are there, but these effects, you are not going to understand each and every single effect. But all these effects are mainly used to exploit the bottom 90 percentage, okay, in order to serve the top 10 percentage. And they say GDP shows you the growth of economy of a nation. And yes, exactly, it shows the growth of economy. But you need to understand who works inside this economy, that bottom 90, and who is the owner of this economy. Exactly. Who is owner of this economy, the top 10%. And if they say the economy is growing, which means they are telling the growth of the owner of this economy, the growth of the owners of this economy, and the growth of the owners of the economy. And who are the owners? The top 10%. And they are telling this the growth of the top 10 percentage inside the nation, and they are not considering bottom 90 percentage labors as a part of a nation. Okay, that they are considering only the top 10 percentage as a part as a nation. So that's the reason only the asset profits are going to be counted in calculating the progress of the nation. Only the asset ownership, only the asset ownership and the profits, okay, the revenue and the profits which is going to be generated inside the nation, it is going to be utilized to calculate the progress of the nation, not the bottom 90 percentage. So which means you are completely in a downside hill, so which you need to understand that. But you're not understanding it. Why you're not understanding it? I'm not understanding. You are not understanding it. Why I'm not understanding it? Because that's the reason every single rule inside the book is being written. Yes, exactly. LTV ratio. LTV ratio. LTV ratio. What is LTV ratio? The loan to value ratios. Okay, there are many rules inside the banks books which is written only for the rich. Okay, TBTF rule. Too big to fail. Which means an institution is too big to fail. Then what will happen? The government and the central banks will bail out the Wall Street. Okay, the Wall Street, too big to fail. Wall Street. Okay, Wall Street. 2008 financial crisis of America, the housing crisis. You need to understand that. Okay, the 2008 financial crisis of Wall Street, that is TBTF rule. Too big to fail. The too big to fail. Okay, which means they are telling it the Wall Street cannot be completely going down, because if the skins and the asses, if the skins and the asses of Wall Street is not saved, definitely the skin and the asses of the government and the banks, they are going to be going down in hell. So which means the Wall Street, the share market, the stock market, and the government and the central banks are interlinkly connected with each other. And you know what? All these progresses are very, very important for them. And that's the reason who are there inside this Wall Street? The top 10 percentage who do the businesses. The bottom 90%, they don't own. They don't own most of the time. Most of the times they don't own it because they depend upon the salaries and they depend upon the FDs that is going to be completely dissolved over a period of a time. As the time goes on, this FDs, they don't have any value. So which means this TBTF rule, that TBTF rule is one of the toughest pill to swallow. Okay, for this, yes, exactly. TBTF. And then the next thing is the TBTF is gone. Then the wealth gain effect. The wealth gain effect. What is wealth gain effect? The wealth gain effect is very, very important. The wealth gain effect is very, 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 very important. The why the wealth gain effect is very, very important. This wealth gain effect, the wealth gain effect, the wealth gain, this wealth gain effect is very, very important. Why? What happens when the wealth gain effect happens? The prices of the real estate, the price of the real estate, the price of the real estate is going to be completely high. The price of the real estate, the prices to make the real estate, cement, iron, steel, every single price is going to be higher. And wealth effect happens because of inflation. And again, inflation is being done in order to save the skins and the asses of top 10 percentage government ministers. And you know what? The banks who hold the, okay, who operate on the assets, who hold the assets, okay, them. The inflation is done purposefully. What is inflation? Yes, exactly. Now, the third one is the inflation. Okay, the inflation is the biggest scam of all the time. Remember this thing. Inflation is a deliberate act, and inflation is the deliberate act, and at the same point of time, deflation is the avoidance act. Okay, the inflation is the deliberate act which is done purposefully, and the deflation is the purposeful act which is avoided purposefully. Because you know what you need to understand? Why? Because they say the businesses are going to be, yes, the businesses are going to be, facing a huge problems, and that's the reason and the businesses are going to be in a huge problem. And you know what, the borrowers have to pay the value of real money, and with respect to inflation, the value of that money is going to be completely less, so that the borrowers can pay it very easily. So all this entire rules and the regulations, all these entire rules and regulations have been done in order to serve the top 10 percentage, that is inflation. Because the top 10% they take the loans, the top 10% they take the loans. Who are the borrowers? They are the top 10% who owns the businesses. They know one thing, that don't keep your money inside the banks. Don't keep your money inside the banks, invest it, move it. And that's the reason they are successful, because they are borrowing, and inflation is happening, and the value of their loan, the real value of their, okay, the nominal, the real value, and then, okay, the nominal value, okay, the real value of that nominal value is going to be completely down, so that they can pay the money very easily, because that value has been completely down, whatever they have borrowed. So that's the reason they are completely easy. It's completely easy to make sure that these people are very easy to get it, because the inflation should happen. They say inflation should happen 2%. Why the inflation should happen? Huh? Why? Okay, why there is a necessity for inflation? Okay, tell me why the inflation is necessary for 2%. Why inflation? First of all, why the inflation word exist? Tell me why the inflation exists. The rise in the price of the goods and services and the commodities and the assets, okay, so that you are going to buy the less quantity of the goods and services, having the same quality of, okay, having the same quality, okay, with the same amount of money over a period of a time. Yes, why less quantity I have to buy? Why the rise in the price of the goods and commodities? So that I have to buy less. And in order to buy the exact thing, I have to shell out more funds of my currency. So which means I belong to bottom 90. So which means you are making me to, okay, making me to spend more funds of my currency. Hmm? More funds of our, okay, of our currency. Why? Why? Why every single time we have to, every single time the bottom 90% they have to risk their own asses, and they have to risk their own skins, okay, in order to save the skins and asses of top 10 percentage? Why bottom 90 percentage they have to, okay, why bottom 90 percentage they have to save their, okay, why every single time bottom 90% has to, first of all they have to work for top 10% inside their assets, and at the same point of time the bottom 90 percentage, okay, the middle class people and the common people, the poor people, they have to serve these assets inside the banks also, where they are storing the value, okay, because they will become the liability, and the liabilities are disadvantage and the assets are at advantage. That's the reason, assets versus liabilities, and the disadvantage, and we are having no value, and the no value thing is serving the values. So which means you are saying to me that the bottom 90% are born to serve the top 10 percentage every single way. First of all, they have to work, and whatever the money they are getting, they are going to pass that money inside the banks, which is going to consider that thing as a no value, when the bottom 90% considers it as the most valuable thing. And at the same point of time, this bottom 90 percentage are going to, hmm, the bottom 90% are going to, okay, pass the liquidity. And you know what, you need to have a liquidity inside the banks. In order to have the liquidity inside the banks, the bottom 90% exist on your planet. Hmm? Otherwise you could have destroyed them whenever you want. And in order to make your work easier, in order to bring the profits to your organization, in order to bring the profits to your organization, in order to bring the profits to your organization and the economy of top 10 percentage, the bottom 90 percentage is required. They are the fuel. They are the fuel of this global credit engine. And when they are the fuel of this global credit engine, okay, so this global the bottom 90%, the bottom 90 the bottom 90% they have to understand the game. They are not understanding this game. They are not understanding this game because the bottom 90%, they are there to serve the top 10 percentage. Now the inflation is going to happen because of these three methods. Okay, the banks, the government, and at the same point of time rich man. All of them, they operate on the assets. The government, they operate on the assets because they want the price of the land to increase on which the assets are going to be constructed. When the assets are going to be constructed, they are going to collect the tax each and every single year. The rich man, okay, he's born with the assets, and the bank, they operate on the assets. Okay, the banks, they operate on the assets because they hold the collateral of the real estate. They hold the okay, they hold the collateral of the real estate. Real estate, that is schools, colleges, okay, medical institutions, wine stores, production plants, factories, everything. And they know this inflation is directly proportional to time. And with respect to time, these three big boys, these three big boys of this gang, okay, this gang, the the bankers and the government ministers and the rich men, what they want, all of these three people, and the celebrities as well as the celebrities, the sportsmen, every single one, the connectors, okay, the connectors also, what they want, the prices of the assets to appreciate, and the value of the digital cash or the printed cash should go down over a period of a time. Okay, what is the meaning of this? The prices of their buildings, the prices of the real estate, the prices of the buildings and the price of the real estate should go with respect to time, each and every single year, each and every single 2 year or 5 years, every single year, every single 6 months. Okay, those valuation, okay, should go higher and higher and higher and higher. And the value of this currency should be devalued, so that the bottom 90% should, in order to, okay, in order to, okay, in order to value that devalued currency to get a particular goods and services, or else this asset, they have to work out more and more and more and more, again and again and again and again, bringing the profit again and again and again to the top 10%. This is just a global credit engine which is going to make sure, this is going to make sure, it is going to break sure, okay, it's going to make sure that they are in profit, and they're going to make sure that this bottom 90%, they are going to just nullify their savings. They're just going to nullify the real value, the real power of this savings, whatever they are going to having inside the banks. And that's the most important thing which you need to understand. And what is the mechanism that is going to do it? Of this global credit engine, the global credit engine has built some monsters. The global credit engine of the entire world, not only India, for the entire world, through the central reserve banking systems, through the central banking systems, has built three monsters. First is the fractional reserve banking systems, which gives rise to inflation as well as currency devaluation. And these three things is the principle and the core of this particular. And the global credit engine has built four monsters. First, the banks, which operate on the assets versus liabilities, where the blood, sweat, pain, suffering, hard work, dedication, okay, from which you are going to get as a salary, and that salary you are going to deposit inside the savings account or the checking account or the current account. That is going to be considered as a liability. That is the first biggest monster they have built. And the second one is the fractional reserve banking, is the second monster which they have built, which leads to inflation and the currency devaluation, which is detrimental, which is going to be completely, blood sucking for the blood suckers, the blood suckers of the bottom, blood sucking the bottom 90% again and again and again and again. So the value of the money, which is going to lose over a period of a time, it is being done purposefully, intentionally, by the bankers, by the top 10%, by the economy, because they are concentrated on the growth of economy of top 10%, neglecting the bottom 90%. And at the same point of time, this bottom 90% should live, love, okay, should live and love and survive, not thrive and prosper, not thrive and prosper and flourish, not thrive and prosper and flourish like the top 10% is the most important, is the most important technique held by the global elites, held by the global bankers around worldwide, and the governments and the bankers are and the central bankers all around the world. So which makes you question the integrity of the banks and the bankers and the banking systems all around the world. So that's the reason you cannot believe anyone. You cannot believe anyone. And when you cannot believe anyone, then why the hell you are believing everyone that they are working for you? They are not working in order to protect your skin. They are going to cut your skin. They are going to kill your skin. They are going to cut your skin. They are going to kill your skin. They are going to pierce the knives with the inflation. They are going to pierce the knives with the inflation and the currency devaluation each and every single day and each and every single point of time without you bastards are realizing it. Huh? Without bottom 90%, they are completely going down to hell, and they're going to be boost vanity shit, dopamine shit, which is fed by the top 10% in order to keep their mouth shut. And you know what? The bottom 90% will always keep the mouth shut against the top 10%. Okay, that's the reason this all things are happening. Why this top 10% are why this bottom 90% is not understanding the game of finance, why this bottom 90% is not understanding the core principles of the economics, why this bottom 90% is not understanding the core principles of the modern day banking. So all this thing which we need to sit and question and answer, because this bottom 90% has never been fed with the in economics. They have been just fed with the two to three definitions. Who is the father of economics? Aristotle. Okay, Aristotle. So all these philosophers, they came and gone. So all these people, they never ever this GDP concept, this per capita, this is that just definitions. They will write it. The definitions they will write it, and they will say yes, tata bye bye. So the persons who have done MCom or the BCom, okay, they have done, okay, they are going to get the job, and when they get the job, when they get the job, when they get the job, and at the same point of time when they are going to have the marriage and the kids, okay, their minds will stop working and their minds will stop questioning, okay, what this inflation is and what this deflation is. That inflation is a purpose, inflation is a deliberate act, and the deflation is the avoidance act. Inflation is deliberate act which is done deliberately, and deflation is, okay, inflation is a deliberate act. Inflation is a deliberate act, and the deflation is the avoidance act. The avoidance act which is avoided purposefully in order to make sure, in order to make sure that, again, the deflation is very good for the common man. The deflation is very good in common man, because there is decrease in the price of the goods and services, and the common man likes it, loves it. Yes. And you know what? Who is going to be completely downside? Who is going to be completely in a downhill, in a loophole, in a hell, in a goddamn hell? All these three big boys of this gang. So the government and the banks and the rich man, who are the part of top 10% who operate on the assets, which means the asset prices are going down. So these asset prices are going down, and at the same point of time, deflation is there. So which means they are not going to make enough profits, their profit margins are very less, and they are not able to pay the interest to the banks, which they have taken overwhelming loans for it. And that's the reason this goddamn bastards, they don't want deflation at all. So that's the reason they will increase the prices of the goods and services and the assets with, okay, having the same quantity, okay, sorry, okay, making us to buy very less quantities, making the common man, the bottom 90%, okay, making bottom 90%, making bottom 90% or the common man or the middle class man or the poor man to buy very less quantities with the same to buy the less quantities of the same quality, having the same number of funds over a period of a time, okay, in order to, okay, by stabbing us with this, okay, to the bottom 90% while saving their own skins and asses of the top 10%. That is what the inflation is a deliberate act, and the deflation is an avoidance act. The inflation is a deliberate act which is done. The inflation is a deliberate act which is done purposefully, and the inflation is a deliberate act. Inflation is a deliberate act which is done purposefully in order to save the skins and asses of top 10%, while as the bottom 90% it is need to understand one thing. Okay, they are going to be sacrificing the blood and the honor, the blood, sweat, pain and suffering of this bottom 90% by devaluating the cash which is they are going to deposit inside their banks. And that is inflation. The inflation is there, the inflation is also there. So the inflation leads to currency devaluation. And who is causing this? The main core principle of the modern day banking operates, that is called as a fractional reserve banking systems. So FRB gives rise to inflation. FRB gives rise to currency devaluation, which I discussed in the earlier video. I won't give it. So now the currency devaluation happened and the inflation happened, and you are going to buy very less for the same number of funds, from the same number of funds. Earlier you could have bought very high, earlier you could have bought much more, but you are doing it very less. Why? Because these three big bastards, the rich man and the government and the banks and the banksters themselves and the Wall Street guys and the Wall Street bankers, and at the same point of time the Wall Street bankers and these guys, the cinema guys and all these people, the cinema stars and everyone who have built the assets, they like inflation, they love inflation, they need inflation. So that's the reason, in order to save the skins and asses of this group, the most majority of bottom 90% assets is getting destroyed. Okay, because that's the reason the skins and the asses of this bottom 90% has no value, and that's the reason it gets destroyed each and every single day and each and every single point of time. So this bottom 90% has no value. So that's the reason. That's the reason where they're working, they are treated very ill. And remember, and whatever they are going to get, they are going to pass that value to such a storage facility that is called as a bank, that is going to consider their fruits of labor, which they have got it, as a liability rather than an asset. For you it's an asset, but for them it's a liability that's have no value. For you it's of complete full value, that is your salary, but for them it's of no value. For the banking, that is called as liability. Your checking account, your savings account, your current account, your goddamn FD account is of no fucking value. You need to understand that. So that's the reason. What you are doing, I don't know, but remember, the TBTF too big to fail. In 2008, the housing crisis happened, and you know what? Lot of people, they paid very high taxes. They paid the price for the currency devaluation. Why it happened? Because the quantitative easing technique, they applied it. Quantitative easing technique, they applied it. The Wall Street bankers, in order to save the Wall Street bankers of America in 2008 financial crisis of America, in 2008 the housing crisis of America, in order to save their skins and asses of this top 10% or whatever the investors of the Wall Street greed gang, in order to save their asses and skins, the government and the central banks, they intervened, the Federal Reserve intervened, and they quantitative eased it. And when they quantitative eased it, what happened? Every single thing was normal, every single thing was declared normal. Then, but who paid that load? Who picked the tab? Who picked the tab of this entire in this messy loophole? Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Oh, tell me. Yes, the bottom 90%. The bottom 90% of Americans. The bottom 50, but the bottom 40, the bottom 30. Yes, exactly. The taxpayers, they picked up the load. Every single time these bastards, they make the mistakes. Yes, the quantitative easing. What is the quantitative easing? Whenever anything wrong happens, don't worry. We are there in order to save your skins and asses. So that is what you need to understand. That is what you need to understand. Remember, nothing is there for you in this life. Nothing is there in for you, okay, for your life. Yes, exactly. Asset price inflation. Okay, quantitative easing is involves central banks purchasing large scale assets, the government bonds and the mortgage backed securities to inject liquidity. This drives up the price of the stocks, bonds and real estate because the top 10% own a disproportionate share of these financial assets. They receive the majority of the gains. Okay, exactly. That's the reason. Okay, many economists argue that the inequalizing effects are predictable, albeit often acknowledged side effect rather than the sole purpose. However, some critics maintain that because of the impact was known early on, continuing the policies makes the outcome deliberate in practice if not stated intent. Okay, top 10% asset on QE, quantitative easing lowers interest rates and increases liquidity, which directly drives up the price of the financial assets like stocks and bonds. Since the top 10% of the households owns the majority of these assets, their net worth often balloons during QE periods, quantitative easing. The bottom 90%, exactly. Okay, maybe there is employment benefits and the cost of living. Yeah. Okay. Okay, for the cost of living, however, the massive influx of liquidity often flows into real estate, causing the house prices and the rents to outpace the wage growth. This can make the home ownership unaffordable for the younger generations and first-time buyers. And inflation is there. Excessive liquidity can fuel inflation, which can act as a regressive tax because low-income households spend larger percentage of their income on essential like food and fuel. This all things are done in order to keep the skins and asses of the top 10% secured, while cutting and while burning, while stabbing the skins and asses of the bottom 90%. So that's the most important thing you need to understand. And you are never ever going to make it. Your life is always going to break. So that's the reason. And you know what? The treadmill effect. What is treadmill effect? Now comes the treadmill effect. The quantitative easing is gone. Now comes the treadmill effect. The treadmill effect is the very toughest persons. The treadmill effect is a construct, is a socio-economic cycle where the bottom 90% of the earners must exert constant increasing effort just to maintain their current standard of living, while the surplus value of that labor disproportionately accumulates for the top 10%. You need to understand this. Okay, remember this thing. The treadmill effect. Okay, the treadmill effect is very important. Okay, remember the treadmill effect is very important. The treadmill effect is very important. Okay, the okay. While the productivity has increased, wage growth for the bottom 90% has not kept pace with the rising cost of living, including the healthcare, housing, and education. Okay, so that's the reason. You need to understand every single effect. Treadmill effect. Now I discussed almost six effects. Too big to fail. Too big to fail. Wealth. Okay, wealth gain effect. And the fractional reserve banking, inflation, currency devaluation. Inflation is a deliberate act. Inflation is a deliberate act done. Okay, inflation is a deliberate act. Inflation is a deliberate act which is done purposefully, and deflation is an avoidance act which is avoided successfully. And you know what? And at the same point of time, quantitative easing whenever the Wall Street makes any mistake, which is done in 2008. And then the treadmill effect. Okay, the bottom 90% they are working, exerting the force on the treadmill in order to stay in the same place. In that, okay, they are going to stay in the same place. In order to stay in the same place, they have to put more and more effort each and every single day and each and every single point of time. And their blood, their sweat, their pain and their suffering is going to become the profit for the top 10%. Always remember the remember the deposit on one's balance, that withdrawal. Okay, you are withdrawing the money. Why you are withdrawing it? You are going to withdraw it for paying someone, and means which means you are depositing that money inside someone's bank account, which means the deposit, okay, the withdrawal on someone's balance sheet is a okay, is a deposit on another's balance sheet. Okay, the blood, the similarly same way, the blood, sweat, pain, the blood, sweat, pain, suffering, hard work, okay, sacrificing of time for money, sacrificing of time for, okay, money in order to survive, for survival, and at the same point of time, okay, and at the same point, cooperation, okay, cooperation, discipline, punctuality, okay, yes, exactly, innocency, decency, every single thing is required in order to stay in this corporate arena. You know, you need to understand that, and if you don't understand it, get lost. So which means this entire thing is being done in order to make sure that you are completely down. So that's the most important thing. You need to understand it. You need to understand it. Huh. The treadmill effect is the treadmill effect is gone. The treadmill effect is gone now. So all this thing, quantitative easing, everything. Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. You are not a hero, man. You are not a hero. Okay, remember this thing. You think that you are a hero. They are saying that you are a part of a nation. You are never ever a part of a nation. You are never ever a part of a nation, my boys. You are never ever a part of a nation, my boys and girls. You are never ever a part of, okay, if you say that you are a part of a nation, then I will slap you. You are just a slave. You are just a rat. You are a slave and you are a rat of this matrix, and you will stay the rat, and you will stay a rat race. You will be a rat race, and you will stay a rat race if you don't revolute against this, all this big nonsense which has been going on. Hmm? Why? Why? Why your asses? Why your skins and asses has to be sacrificed? Okay, why the bottom 90%? The common men, the middle class men, the poor class people, why their skins and asses has to be sacrificed? Why their skins and asses has to be stabbed each and every single time? And why their skins and asses has to be burnt in order to, so that they will work again and again and again and again with the blood, sweat, pain and suffering every single day and every single minute of their lifetime in order to serve the top 10 percentage of the assets, and they are going to get some fruits of labor, and wherever they are going to pass that money inside the banks, that is going to kill their fruits of labor with respect to the time through the fractional reserve banking systems by creating more competitors, okay, for the goods and services, where the supply and the demand change. Okay, the supply is going to be very less. The supply of the goods and services, they can print the loans. These bank bastards, this goddamn bank evil bastards, they can print the loans out of thin air. But these banks, they cannot make the goods and services. These banks cannot print. These banks cannot print the goods and services. These banks cannot print cement, iron, steel, brick each and every single day. But these banks can print the loans. These banks can print the loan accounts out of thin air in order to serve the top 10%. Yes, exactly. These banks are going to give out the loans, and these loans are going to be there inside the pockets of the top 10%. Why? Because this top 10% has the assets, and who has the assets, they are going to make the profits by selling the goods and services. And that's the reason there is a correlation between the banks and the top 10% assets, which means the banks are going to give the loans to the middle class people in order to spend that loan into the okay, the top 10% assets. So which means, okay, the game is rigged, fixed. The game is rigged, fixed. It's gone for bottom 90% when you're born. Remember this thing. If you're born in a poor family, if you're born in a middle class, you need a miracle. You need to be a pop, okay, you need to be a rock star, you need to be a pop star, you need to be a celebrity, you need to be a singer, you need to be a banger. Okay, I don't care what you are. Okay, but you need to be these things in order to accumulate the wealth, okay, in order to build the wealth, and in order to build the assets and become independent from this goddamn system. So that's the reason you need to understand. That's the reason. Otherwise you have to you have to, okay, otherwise you need to, okay, revolution. Okay, otherwise you need to bring the revolution against the top 10%. And again, okay, and if, okay, you have to do that, and you have to say, we need to invent. Okay, there is a great intensity. There is a great need. There is a great need. There is a great need in order to bring a modern, modern economic system reformation. Means a revolution, modern economic system revolution. Because we have to change the share market, because we don't need share market, the share market which existed 300 years ago. We don't want that share market right now. We never ever want the share market. We never ever want the share market, because the share market has the compound growth for the top 10%, and only the top 10%, yes, exactly, it's going to win. And the bottom 90% is always going to lose. So that's the reason. And they say take the risk, take the risk. Remember, first of all, they are taking the risk by working hard, and then you are saying that whatever they have took the risk and they have earned it, they earned it. They are saying that, the people are saying that bet with this, bet with these fruits of labor and increase that growth. So how you are going to, remember, you are risking your asses, you are risking your skins and asses daily in order to earn the fruits of the labor. But when you are risking your skins and asses each and every single day in order to earn the fruits of labor from, the bottom, from the top 10% assets, which means again you are getting the fruits of labor, and again the people are saying that in order to grow this you have to risk your fruits of labor. What they are saying, nonsense, bloody shit. Huh? And they're saying, you have to remember, this entire life, this entire world is evil, this entire monetary system is evil, this entire goddamn humanity is evil. They're saying humanity. There's no humanity anymore, because when you see all this currency devaluation, the currency devaluation, inflation, fractional reserve banking, which is being done because it serves the purpose and the interest of the top 10% by stabbing, by burning, by kicking the asses and the skins of the bottom 90%, then you can understand how this entire systems have been done in order to shake down. That's the reason. So that's the reason you need to understand. You need to put a break to this scripts, because they have scripted, because these people have written the scripts, and then these people have written the scripts, and these people have written the scripts. They have become the monsters. They have become the monsters of this generation by including every single rule inside this book. Every single rule inside this book in order to serve their interest, in their family's interest, by killing the most of the people's blood, pain, sweat and suffering. So that's the reason you need to, that's the reason these banks have to be stopped, these financial systems have to be stopped, the share market has to be stopped, every single system has to be stopped, and you need to bring a new system of, a new system of currency where your blood, pain, suffering is valued each and every single day and each and every single point of time. That is the thing, that is the fruits of the labor. The fruits of the labor should be valued without investment, without anything. We have crossed the civilization. We have passed the industrial revolution. We have the inventions, all these things. We have innovation, every single thing we have. We know how to win. We know the concept to study. We know the doctors. We know how to make the doctors, engineers, construction workers. Everyone knows how to do the job. When everyone knows how to do the job, innovation is not required right now. And when innovation is not required, why we are going for a profit mechanism? So, forget about this profit mechanism, and we have to go for protecting. We have to go for protecting the blood. We have to go for protecting and serving the blood, honor, code, integrity of the bottom 90%, because bottom 90% they don't have integrity, because their values, because the values which have been passed inside the banks, that has no value, because that is a liability inside the bank's balance sheet. So which means it is wrong. It's wrong. What's wrong? It's wrong. It's wrong. It's deadly wrong. It's deadly wrong. Right now it's deadly wrong. This modern financial ecosystem, this modern financial systems, it's just a pain. It's just a pain inside the ass of bottom 90%. And this pain is serving someone's smile. Someone is having a pain inside their asses and inside their bodies, and someone is smiling without working any hard. And we remember, that's the reason the pain, the blood, pain, sweat, the pain, the blood, pain, sweat, the blood, pain, the blood, pain, sweat, suffering, hard work, cooperation, and and you know what, the discipline, the punctuality, everything. And and you need to understand the competition, the fear of the layoffs, the insecurity of the jobs, every single thing on one's balance sheet is is on one's balance sheet. That is on the bottom line, this balance sheet is the smile, is the smile, thriving, flourishing, prospering, thriving, flourishing, prospering, living their life in an extravaganza, in a vanity, in a dopamine shit, in a vanity, dopamine shit, and the booze, and the glory, and the glory, and the glory, and the luxurious lifestyle what they have achieved for the for the top 10 percentage balance sheet. And this balance sheet, remember that, remember, you don't need to go for hell or heaven anymore. You can see here the hell and the heaven here only. The top 10% they are living in a heaven, but they are making the bottom 90% life hell. So that's the reason the top 10%, the top 10% heaven, and the bottom 90% is a hell. And all this percent hell, heaven and the hell is been done. You think that every single thing is natural. Every single thing is not natural. You need to understand the concepts. You need to understand the concepts of finance and economics. When you understand the concepts of finance and economics, then you can understand this entire thing has been done in order to make sure, and make sure that the has to make sure that the bottom 90% backs, the backs are going to be destroyed each and every single day, so that they will bend their backs again and again. They will work hard so that the top 10% can sit like this, and they can count, and they can be happy, luxurious each and every single day and each and every single point of time. So that's the main important thing which has been done in order to, and this thing has been done not 20 years ago, not 30 years ago. It has been done almost 350 years or 400 years ago, when the share market was invented. When the share market was invented, Hitler was against it. Hitler was against it. Many economists are against it. Many economists have described the fractional reserve banking, especially the Austrian school of criticism. They have said it. Okay, Murray guy and the Sota bad guy. They have made this thing clear that this fractional reserve banking, it is going to kill entire humanity. It is going to kill entire the core banking principle with which each and every single with which each and every single central banking systems work, and their sub branches work. It is going to be the destruction of the mankind. It is going to be the destruction of a common people, and it is going to be destruction because it is going to devalue. It is going to devalue the fruits of the labor of the bottom 90%, and that's not acceptable, because I am also a part of bottom 90%. That's the reason. That's the reason you need to understand, because you have because you guys have gone to different planet, and you have came with this fractional reserve banking systems that creates the own deterioration of the own resources. That because whatever the resources which we are giving it to you, you are deteriorating it again and again and again and again. And in order to preserve the values of those resources, the bottom 90% has to risk their assets again and again and again and again, and they are going to, yes, exactly. This is just like, what, it's a dog. And the bottom 90% is a dog, and the top 10% is a god. The bottom 90% is a dog, and the bottom 90% is a dog, and the inflation is a bone. What is inflation? The rise in the price of the goods and services and the asset. That is, you have to buy the factories, schools, houses. Which means you are chasing those houses, you are chasing those factories, you are chasing those agricultural fields, you are chasing it. But whenever you are moving it, whenever the dog moves, whenever the bottom 90% moves, here the bottom 90% is a, here the bottom 90%, 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 here the bottom 90% is a dog. Here the bottom 90%, here the bottom 90%, here the bottom 90% is a dog. And these people, they have applied this dog bones. And these people are sitting here, and when these people are sitting here, and this is inflation. This is inflation. This dog, okay, this bone, this bone is the inflation. This bone is the inflation, and these people are sitting here. These people are what? The government, and this is the bank. This is the bank, and this is the bank. This is the government, and this is a rich man. This is a rich man. Okay, so all these three big boys of this gang, okay, they have sat here, and you know what? They're giving out. They're giving out the bone of inflation. The bone of inflation with respect to the time. Inflation, okay, the inflation bone, the fractional reserve banking bone, and at the same point of time currency devaluation, the fractional reserve banking system which gives rise to the currency devaluation and the inflation by creating too much money inside the system. And at the same point of time, okay, and at the same point of time, which means, okay, again the quantitative easing, TBTF, too big to fail for the Wall Street, quantitative easing, and then quantitative tightening. Okay, and at the same point of time, cantillon effect, the cobra effect, and the wealth gain effect, and then the LTV ratio, okay, now I will come to the LTV ratio. LTV ratio is what is LTV ratios? What is LTV ratios? What is LTV ratios, man? Tell me, what is LTV ratios? The loan to value ratios. Loan to value ratio means, okay, whatever the value you are having it, I am going to give the loan depending upon that LTV ratio. Okay, for your value, I'm going to give you the loan. How much value you have provided to me. Okay, for that thing, I'm going to give it a loan. So, and it is going to be depending upon 50% or 60%. Most of the times it is 50 to 60. Okay, depending. Okay, and if you are going to pay the if you are going to pledge the mortgage, you are going to pledge the collateral. Okay, and that becomes a mortgage. Okay, of house, they are going to give the 0.5% of this house. The LTV ratio means the LTV ratio is 50%. Okay, 50%. Now LTV ratio is what is, okay, means if I give you X, if I give the bank X value, they are going to give me X by 2 value. Okay, if I am going to give, if I'm going to give the banks, okay, if I'm going to give the banks, the bottom 90% guy, okay, they're going to give the banks, okay, if I'm going to pass the value of X, okay, they're going to pass me the value of LTV, that is 50%. But I have passed the value of X, that is, okay, which means I'm transferred the ownership. I have transferred the ownership of this X value to the bank, which means I have successfully, hey bank, my house belongs to you. My house property papers belongs to you. Now take it, and so that give me X by 2 value. X by 2. That's the reason the banks, they give you 50% X by 2 value to the what? X by 2 value to the what? Okay, the bottom 90%. Okay, now this X by 2 value, okay, X by 2 plus I, you have to return it in the point of, in after certain period of years. But remember, if you fail to do it, the banks, they have given it to the bank, you have submitted it, and whatever, okay, remember, now you have to repay this entire X by 2 plus value to here, and then they will give you the X bank. Now this X value, they will return it here after you pay out X by 2 plus I. Okay, now if you fail to do that, okay, remember, always the asset prices are moving forward. You are a dog, and the rich man, the government, and the banks, they are sitting on the top of a dog, and they're holding the bone of inflation. With respect to the time. And you know what? When that dog chases the bone with respect to the time, that dog is never ever going to win. You know why? The dog is holding that, the dog itself carries the load of the top 10%. That dog, okay, the bottom 90% is a dog. Even I am a dog. Okay, and you know what? Okay, the bottom 90% carries the load of top 10 percentage on their backs, and you know what? And they are going to show the load, and they are going to show these, and they are going to show the load. They are going to show the load of okay, of this bone, of this bone, yeah, of this bone. Okay, and this, what is that bone? That bone is an asset. They are going to show the luxury, lifestyle, okay, glory, extravaganza, 190. Okay, whatever they are going to show it, whatever they are going to show it, you are going to chase it, the bottom 90, and the dog chases it. But the dog will never ever have that bone, because the bottom, because the dog does not understand who is sitting on the top of the dog. Exactly, the top 10%. And that's the reason the bottom 90%, okay, who are very huge in number, they have to revolt against this system, and they have to make such a system which is beneficial, which is going to be increasing the value of their life, okay, by working hard for their future generations, not to be detrimental, okay, for this life. So that's the reason you have to bring the financial reforms. You have to bring the financial reforms. If you don't bring the financial reforms, your future generations as us are not going to be destroyed, are not going to be burnt, or not going to be cut or stabbed. It is going to be destroyed, it is going to be nuked, it is going to be missiled. And that's the reason your entire future generations, it is going to live in a fear of a digital IDs. And that's the reason you have to, that's the reason. Until some cash is there, you need a cash. You need to have the flow of cash, because you can see what you are transacting it. But you don't know when, once every single thing becomes digital, no one can see, okay, who is sitting on the top of the dog, becomes, because they become invisible and invincible at both of a time. Okay, they will become invisible and invincible. They are too hard to defeat, because, but they will hold the bone, and when they hold the bone, you are a dog, you are going to chase it, and you are not never ever going to chase it, because you are carrying them. First of all, you need to remember, you need to, okay, what the dog should do, it should remember this thing. It should make the top 10 percentage, it should make the rich man, and it should make the government to fall from its shoulders, fall from its back to the ground. When it makes when the bottom 90% makes the rich, the bottom 90% makes the rich, and the top 10 percentage, and at the same point of time, okay, the banks and the government to fall on the ground, then the dog can chase the bone, the dog can have the bone. That, okay, that's, until that thing, the dog cannot have a bone. And that's the reason, with respect to time, the dog is moving, and the time is counted, and the time is counted in years. And whenever the dog, okay, let us think that years in seconds. Okay, remember, the dog is moving in second. What happened? Nothing happened. Your ancestors, they lived like a, your ancestors, they lived in middle class houses, and you are living in middle class houses. What changed? Your ancestors, your grandpa, your grandma, they worked in the, your grandpa, your grandma have, they have worked every single day, every single minute of their lifetime for the government. And you are working for it, and your children are working it. Means your children, your ancestors, your grandpa, your grandma are built for working for 9 to 5 7. You are working for 9 to 5 7, and your children are going to be built for working for 9 to 5 7, because all of these three guys, all of these three generations, they are sitting and spending their 20 years in some useless education, which is going to be building them for the factory model each and every single day, and each and every single point of time. And that's the reason you are dependent. You are dependent on the salaries, not independent. That's the reason. And who has made you dog? Exactly, who has made you dog? Yes, the top 10%. The rich man, the ministers, everyone, through the currency devaluation, inflation, fractional reserve banking systems. Yeah, and these banks, they are going to collect, exactly. These banks, they are going to collect the interest on the money which they don't have in the first place. And at this point of time, I wanted to talk about the stock market. The stock market is what? The stock market is built for a rich man. That's not built for a poor man. That is not built for a rich. That is built for a rich man. That is not built for a poor man. Because the rich man has a snowball effect, which means he gets when he is in a womb. When he is in a womb of his mother and his father, he has got stocks. He has got stocks, bungalows, okay, villas, mansions, malls, schools, factories, educational institutions, okay, wine stores, production plants, every single minute of his lifetime. But, 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 remember this thing. When he makes this, when he makes it, okay, when he is, okay, when he is built with the millions of shares or billions of shares inside one particular entity, he has billions of shares, and those billions of shares will have a billions of value, net valuation. You know what? Okay, when the currency, when remember this thing, remember one thing, when when the share prices of that particular stock is going to be increased by $5 or $10, okay, remember his valuation is going to be increased by, his valuation is going to be increased in billions, but your valuation is completely in, because you have bought very less number of shares, 100 or 200 shares maximum, because your value is completely less and his value is completely overwhelmingly high, and that's the reason he sees the compound growth, and he sees the compound growth very faster, and you are going to spend almost 15 to 20 years to see a small compound growth, and that's the reason your valuation is never ever there. So why you are investing the money in the stock market? Why you are investing the money in the stock market? Because someone has said it to you. You are, because all the financial systems of this generation, they are fraud. The financial system is, okay, the financial system, it's the most venomous poisonous snake, it's the most venomous anaconda of this lifetime. There is the most, you know what, it's, you know, it's just like the Satan. It's the Satan of the humankind. This entire systems which is built, it's the Satan, it's the satanic, it's the vulgar, it's the bad, it's the vulgar, it's the bad, it's a poison, it's a lava, it's a venom, it's a snake, it's a Satan each and every single day. And you are working for a Satan and you are working for a snake, and that's the reason you have to, the bottom 90%, they have to revolt against this top 10%. The bottom 90%, they have to bring a revolution in order to preserve their future generations value. They can escape, but what about their future generations, what they are going to live there? And you know what, and that's the reason you need to understand, this entire generations are going to be doomed by this entire wrong things. And this is, I can't understand this. I can't understand this game. Remember this thing. I cannot understand the blood, pain, and suffering. It is going to be devalued. It is going to be devalued of bottom 90% in order to serve the smiles, faces, in order to serve the smiles, luxuries, and the assets of the top 10 percentage by making them happy. For making the top 10%, for keeping the top 10%. Yenama? Huh? Okay, for keeping the top 10% of this world very, 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 very happy. Okay, the bottom 90%, they have to sacrifice their life. That's the thing which I don't understand. That's the thing which I don't understand. Every single rule inside the book, every single rule inside the book of economics and the finance, it is the fraud thing which is being written and practiced for centuries again and again and again and again. And that's the reason every single government is having debt money, because the fractional reserve banking system leads to the debt of the nations, and this debt is going to be continued again, and no one is going to have enough paper to print that much money, and at the same point of nobody is going to pay that money, and everybody is going to just push forward. And who is going to own, okay, and who is going to who is going to own who's going to own okay, who is going to own the okay, every single country owns some other country some money, and this country owns that country some money, and this country owns this money. The triangle is completed, which means nobody pays anything. And in order to preserve the bilateral relations between among the nations of exports and imports and some deal agreements, they will keep their skins and asses very easily. These governments don't trust the governments. Don't trust any nation. Don't trust any 190 nations. Don't trust even I won't trust. I have lost my patience. I have lost my trust on this 190 or 195 nations, because this 195 nations, they have the national debt. They have the debt. And you know what this debt, because of which this debt is all. This debt, every single money is a debt money, and it is going to be paid with the blood. And every single money is paid with a debt. Okay, every single money is a debt money, and that debt is being the debt money is creating more debt. The debt money itself is creating the debt money inside the global credit, the debt money inside the global credit engine. Okay, because of the transactions, because of paying interest, it is creating more and more debts. It is creating more and more debts, and at the same point of time, and you are living and you are paying the blood, and you are having the blood money. You are having the blood and using the blood. Okay, using the blood, pain and suffering, you are paying. You are daily transactioning the blood, the debt money. You are daily transactioning the blood debt money. Okay, debt money with another debt money, and this all these transactions will go on and go on and go on and go on, and the skins and the asses, the governments, they never ever, the governments, they never ever, they never ever, they never ever, they never ever, they will collapse. Why? Or else dissolve. They will just restructure. The United States of America has restructured it. The United States of America got restructured in 1881 or some 1885. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And at the same time, it got okay, and it had no income taxes. And after that, Federal Reserve tax, Federal Reserve Act of America, okay, 1913, okay, it passed. Then income tax happened. Every single taxes happened. Earlier there was no taxes. Okay, some 2% or 1%. Now everything, because these bastards, okay, because these bastards, they have just gone insane through the debt money. They have gone insane through the debt money, and you know who they are enslaving it? The taxpayer, the bottom 90%. And when they enslave the entire bottom 90% with the debt money, with the tax money, finished, done. And you know they make the mistakes. First they make the mistakes, and then they make the mistakes through the currency devaluation, extra printing of the cash, and then they burn your asses. Okay, they will try to burn your asses, and they will try to burning your asses means burning your pockets. Okay, they will just peel off your asses. Okay, in order to make sure they are going to collect the money. And you know what? You need your asses not to be burnt. You need your asses to be burnt. You don't need your asses to be burnt, so that you are going to pay whatever they want. And you have to pay, and you will pay, because you are a good citizen, and they need good citizens. They don't need aggressive citizens like me. They don't need aggressive citizens like me. They need good citizens. You should be completely loyal to the state. Even though the state sacrifices your ass, you need to make sure you will sacrifice your ass for the state. You have to sacrifice your ass for the state. You have to sacrifice your skin for the state. But the state should come first. Okay, you will come later. And you know what? They have put enough of patriotism. They have put enough of patriotism bullshit and the nationalism shit inside in you, so that you are becoming blind. You are becoming blind when you see the nation flag. When you see the nation's flag, you will become blind. Yes, my nation, my nation, my nation, my nation, my nation. Get lost. My nation, get lost. Okay, because no, don't fear the nations. Don't fear the nations. Don't fear the governments. Don't fear the banks. Don't fear the banksters, fraudsters, scamsters, Wall Street bankers. All these things. Okay, they never ever want the benefit of you. They suck the blood. They suck the blood each and every single day and each and every single minute of your lifetime. And that's the reason they are built for you. That's the reason they are built to destroy you, not to construct you. But Okay, but whenever they say but whenever they say that go in left direction, you have to go in right direction, and whenever they say go in right direction, you have to go in left direction. So that's the reason you need to protect yourself from the government. Okay, the time has come. The time has come to protect yourself from these evil financial systems. You need to protect from the government. You need to protect yourself from the banks. You need to protect yourself from the rich man's monopoly, and you need to you need to protect yourself from the waste junk products which they are selling it to you, both digitally, both physically, both metabolically, and at the same point of time both spiritually. The spiritually, okay, they are making your minds and hearts junk. How? By selling pedophilia, by selling pedophilia, by selling you the woman, by selling you garbage shit, by selling nudity, by selling prostitution, by selling the gall wells, every single thing they have allowed it, and they are selling you betting, they are selling you betting, they are selling you fan wars, they are selling you betting, they are selling you fan wars, they are selling you something called as a democracy, that is called as we are fighting, the two parties will fight against each other in order to benefit the common class. Bullshit, bullshit. They are just playing with your emotions each and every single day and each and every single point of time. That's what Hitler said. That's what Hitler said. Hitler always said, democracy, see the democracy, there will be always two parties. Okay, one party is going to exhaust the patience of another party. One party is going to exhaust the patience of a common man, and then the second party comes to the power, and this cycle will repeat again and again and again. And Hitler was always right. And you see, you need to understand, Hitler was always right. And that's the reason you need to have the kingdoms, you need to have the dictators, not the governments. The governments are useless, because the governments are useless and baseless, and the democracy is shit. The democracy is a bullshit. There's nothing called as democracy. There's nothing called as democracy in this world. You need to understand, there's nothing called as democracy. There's nothing that thing called as you have a power to vote. You have a power to vote. You can pick the sides. You can pick the sides, but what is the use of picking the side when both the sides are serving, but when the both sides are serving the same rich man, when the both sides are serving the something called as a satanic greed inside them, when the both the sides are serving the same thing called as a corruption, when the both sides are serving, they're serving the same masters, when they're serving the same masters, secretly, when they're serving the same masters, exactly. What is the use of Democrats and Republicans? They're useless. They're useless. They're useless. The entire philosophy of democracy itself is a shit. It's a shit. It's a disaster. It's a shit and it's a disaster, and you need the kingdoms ASAP. And America needs the kingdoms ASAP. India needs the kingdom ASAP. India needs the strongest dictatorship for the next 50 years. Otherwise, India's middle class and the poor class, especially the poor class, the bottom 50%, it is going to be completely destroyed. Because these people, they have gone insane, and you need the dictatorship in order to cut down these evil systems, in order to cut down these evil systems once and for all. Because in order to bring humanity back on track, you need one demons. You need just one devil in order to destroy every single evil. So that's the reason you need to have a devil. You need to be a devil in order to destroy the devils. So that's the reason, because the devils have to bring the death of an evil. The devils have to bring the devils have to bring the death of an evil, and these evil systems have to completely go down. These evil systems have to completely go down, because these systems are not built for you. These systems are never ever built for you. Then why the hell you are thinking that these systems are built for you? Up. That's the reason. Never ever, never ever, never ever, never ever, never ever believe that thing. It all happened because of the Rothschild, and the Rothschilds are the main architecture. The Rothschilds, they are the main architecture of this entire thing. All these five big boys, all these five big men, all these five big brothers, they banged the humanity. They banged the humanity. They banged the humanity for almost 150 years through the wars. Because they smelled the blood with the money, and they knew exactly they can overthrow any kind of government, they can overthrow any kind of a king. And always remember, When who has the finance? Exactly. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. They occupied every single central bank of this world. And you know what? Until they are there, this chaos will be there. Until the Rothschilds, until the name Rothschilds is there inside this world, this entire humanity will never ever see the peace. That's the reason. That's the reason. The Rothschilds, they took the form of IMF and the World Bank after, exactly. And you need to understand. After the World War II was over, Israel was created. And for construction of Israel, who was responsible? The Rothschilds. And the Rothschild, the Israel, they have written a letter to the Rothschild that thanking confirmation. This is what happened in 1948, I think. And at the same point of time, this America and Israel, they are just being like the big boys. Okay, the big boss. Okay, and the global supreme power, it shifted from the London to the Washington DC. Okay, it shifted that power shifted from the Great Britain, the Great Britain of England, the Great British Empire, to the England after World War II. Just power changed. That just the power shifted. But the imperial colonialism, it did not happen like it did not happen. It did not happen. It did not happen through the physical inventions, the physical invasions, through the military armies. It happened through financial colonialism. It happened through the imperial colonialism has happened from then onwards through the financial debts which everyone owes it right now, and this financial debt has gone to 325 to 330 to 340 trillion US dollars as of right now, and it is continuing as of February 15th, as of February 15th 2026, 11:52 p.m. Okay, as of I'm talking, okay, as of I'm okay, which means if I go on telling the history of the Rothschilds, it's going to take a lot of time. Okay, I'm not going to go for that. But remember this thing. Always remember the history. Okay, the financial systems are always written by someone else. Remember, okay, I will give you a hint. Suppose you invent a game. When you invent a game, what will happen? Okay, you want to win. When you want to win and when you want others to lose. Remember, when you want to win and you want others to lose. When you want yourself to win and others to lose, which means you should know your strength and you should know your weaknesses. Okay, and you know what? And you have to write every single rule inside the book that is going to kill that. Okay, that you are going to make a mandatory rules that is going to say that this rule is not allowed. You know what? Okay, inside the books, okay, inside the football, okay, inside the game of football. Okay, you don't know how to. Okay, you don't know how to go. You don't know how to take a free kick and to score the goal, and then you will say the free kick is not allowed. The free kick is not allowed to have a goal. There is nothing called as free kick. That thing is lost, and you don't know how to do the headers, and because your weakness is there with the headers. So what you will do? I don't want headers. Why I don't want headers? Okay, you don't want the headers, but you are not allowing other ones to have the headers because that is your weakness, and that is what we call it as exactly. You are not having header. Okay, that means you are not having header. Okay, Okay, you will never ever score the goals with the headers. So that's the reason you are writing the rules inside the books that you don't want the headers. Okay, now this is the second thing. And third one is I don't want to have, I don't want to have the game of okay, I don't want to have this game of offside. Okay, means there's nothing called as offside because I'm scoring the goals too many from offside. If I'm going to score the goals from offside, so what I need to do, I need to write the book, I need to write in the books that I don't want offside. I just need to score the goals, so there is no offside, there is no where, there is no penalty. That's it. That's it. And if you're getting too much red cards, and you have to say that okay, there is nothing called as red card or yellow card inside the, there's nothing called as red card or as yellow card inside the game of football. There's no yellow cards, there's no red cards. Yeah, you know what, you can kick anyone, you can smash anyone in order to score the goal, in order to snatch the ball from someone's left. You can hit him, you can kick him, you can kill him. Okay, but okay, you need to have the ball. Yes, that is also required. So all these rules you can write it, because if you invent a game, earlier, okay, if someone wanted to earn the game, okay, if someone wanted to, get that game, if someone wanted to, okay, win the game, each and every single game, he should have written it. And at the same point of time, remember this thing, okay, he should have written it like, okay, the whatever the team which I belong, okay, the goal post of my team is going to be very, okay, very narrow, very less, okay, this much only the goal post, but the opposition team's goal post will be very much this one, so that I can score the goal very easily. This is how the rules of economics has been written. This is how the rules and regulations of the top 10 percentage. Okay, what is the economics? Economics is just a, okay, it's a study of, it's just you know what, it's a scam subject, it's a subject of scam, where every single definition is a garbage, every single definition is a garbage, because it is not going to provide you the full exact microscopic view of each and every single definition. So whatever the definitions which I have told you, whatever the things which I have told you, that is the deepest microscopic picture of this economics. And that's the reason you need to understand. If they say intense debate, this is subject to intense debate, remember, which means why there is debate, which means when there is a debate, when there is something wrong, then only there is a debate. This thing is wrong, that's the reason you should not have this. Which means everyone knows this thing is wrong, but still we are practicing the same systems. And that's the reason we need to put a break to this system which sucks our blood, which takes our time, which sucks our blood every single day and every single minute of our life. And then we are not going to become. So that's the reason you need to understand this. And okay, remember this thing. This international clique, okay, remember this thing. And who was against it? Of course, Hitler. And he was the villain in everyone's eyes. That's not good. That's never ever good. That's never ever good. You need to understand this. Okay, see here.
Das deutsche Volk gelobt Ihnen in und ich kann sagen, durch Hungern. Und habe mich kleine Wurzeln ganz bestimmten Innern. Immer das geblieben, was ich vorher war. Der Völkerstreit oder Hass untereinander, der wird gepflegt von ganz bestimmten Interessenten. Es ist eine kleine Wurzel die Menschen, die überall und nirgends zu Hause sind, die nirgends einen Boden haben, auf den sie gewachsen sind, sondern die heute in Berlin leben, morgen genauso gut in Brüssel sein können, übermorgen in Paris oder mit in Prag oder in Wien oder in London und die sich überall zu Hause fühlen. Es sind die einzigen, die wirklich als internationale Elemente anzusprechen sind, weil sie überall ihre Geschäfte betätigen können. Aber das Volk kann ihnen ja nicht nachfolgen. Das Volk ist ja gekettet an seinen Boden, ist ja gekettet an seine Heimat, ist ja gebunden an die Lebensmöglichkeiten seines Staates, der Nation. Nicht die intellektuellen Schichten haben mir den Mut gegeben, dieses gigantische Werk zu beginnen. Von das kann ich sagen, den Mut habe ich nur gefasst, weil ich zwei Schichten kannte, den Bauer und den deutschen Arbeiter. Die haben nur unsere Aufgaben studiert. Ihre Angelegenheit. Wir mischen uns nicht. Ihre Angelegenheit. Sie sollen sich nicht in unsere mischen. Hat nur einen Wunsch, nach seiner Person selig werden zu können. Sie sollen uns in Ruhe lassen. Wir mischen uns nicht in ihre Angelegenheit.
Here he is saying that we do not interfere in the affairs of others. We do not interfere in the affairs of others, and they should not interfere in ours. And he was right, and because of which the World War II has happened, because they were not the Germans were not ready to accept the Rothschilds. The Germans were not the Germans were not ready to bring. The Germans were not ready, especially the Nazi party, they were not ready to accept the Rothschilds. They were never ever ready to accept the Rothschilds. And when they were not ready to accept the Rothschilds, and in fact, the history tells us that Hitler, he kidnapped the Rothschilds, and later he demanded the ransom of 21 million Reichsmarks. 21 million Reichsmarks, which accounts to some $450 million as of today's inflation. All these things are there in history. It's all these things are there. So that's the reason you need to understand this thing. Okay.
Disclaimer. This video discusses corruption that infected me, never recognizing between Western economies as before, and obtained every right to Germans. The same pattern unfolded nations began over a century. Any views? What we are witnessing is a struggle that began over a century ago. The moment when Jews were granted the rights of citizens in European nations. That single act of so-called emancipation marked the beginning of a catastrophe. It granted equality to a people who were never meant to be equal, a people who have always existed as a nation within nations, pursuing their own interests while wearing the mask of citizenship. This transformation did not happen overnight. It crept forward gradually, first one concession, then another, still until a people who had been recognized as entirely foreign just 100 years before had obtained every right belonging to native Germans. The same pattern unfolded in economic life. As industry grew and masses of workers flooded into the cities, a new financial system arose. The stock exchange gained power over national economies. Banks extended their reach into every corner of commerce, and who stood at the center of this new financial order? I say to you plainly, it was not the German. The institutions of international finance operate according to principles entirely foreign to the German character They serve interests that have nothing to do with the welfare of our people. Consider the difference between Western Europe and Central Europe. In England and France, the process of industrialization drew farm workers into the cities. But in those countries, the foreign element remained small in number, so small that they could blend into the population and escape notice. The ordinary Englishman encountered them only as fellow businessmen, as captains of industry, never recognizing them as something apart. This is why certain political ideas took root so easily in the West. When the masses cannot identify who truly guides them, they can be led to believe they are governing themselves. They call this system democracy. But what is democracy in practice? It is the rule of quantity over quality. It is the triumph of manipulation over wisdom. It is a system designed to ensure that the masses believe they are free while serving purposes they do not understand. Look at how this system operates. There are always two parties, sometimes three, who appear to oppose one another. The public watches them fight. When one party exhausts public patience, the other takes power, and the cycle repeats. The people believe they have made a choice. In reality, nothing has changed. The word freedom is constantly invoked. But what does freedom mean to those who rule? It means freedom to pursue their interest without interference. And what does freedom mean to the common man? He believes it means he can say what he likes and go where he pleases. He does not realize that the freedom to speak means nothing when the words that shape opinion are controlled by others. Germany's path has been different. Here, loyalty has traditionally centered on the person of the small in number, so as captains of certain political ideas took root so easily. It is democracy in practice. It is the rule of quantity over quality. It is the triumph of manipulation over wisdom. They are governing themselves. They call this system democracy. Took root so easily in the West. When the masses cannot identify who truly guides them, they can be led to believe they are governing themselves. They call this system democracy. But what is democracy in practice? It is the rule of quantity over quality. It is the triumph of manipulation over wisdom. It is a system designed to ensure that the masses believe they are free while serving purposes they do not understand. When one party, sometimes three, who are the triumph of manipulation over wisdom. It is a system designed to ensure that the masses believe they are free while serving purposes they do not understand. Look at how this system operates. There are always two parties, sometimes three, who appear to oppose one another. The public watches them fight. When one party exhausts public patience, the other takes power, and the cycle repeats. The people believe they have made a choice. In reality, nothing has changed. The word freedom is constantly invoked. But what does freedom mean to those who rule? It means freedom to pursue their interest without interference. And what does freedom mean to the common man? He believes it means he can say what he likes and go where he pleases. He does not realize that the freedom to speak means nothing when the words that shape opinion are controlled by others. German.
You would have understood the game, okay, of democracy, what he says. According to him, he's in speech. Okay, he has been completely critics of this democracy. And you know what he brought, that game. Okay, remember what he brought. This game, he was against the Jews. Why he was against the Jews? Because he says that I am not against the Jews in the first place. Okay, he is saying that, okay, inside this video which I have been sharing to you, it's almost 12 minutes long. He's saying that he's not against the Jews from the childhood. Okay, but he treats them as a very good thing. But when he saw them again and again and again and again, he saw their patterns. He saw what they're doing. Okay, that's the reason. Okay, he's saying like this is the thing. See.
And then came the decline of our culture. These mounds of contamination. And then came the decline of our culture. These mounds. And then came the decline of our culture. These mounds of contamination of our entire cultural life. The decomposition of our literature. The poisoning of our theater, of our movie theaters. All the art is now falling for it. Millions of Germans no longer participate any longer. It does not appeal to them anymore. This art was not born from our people. It is foreign to us and will remain foreign. That has nothing to do with the German character and did not come from our soul. It was imposed on our people by a subversive press, which made it acceptable. And parallel to this, already the assault begins against the education of our children's brains. the tearing out all the memories of our German past, the insult to all the great men of our people, the removal of its memory from the hearts and brain out of the German youth.
And that's the reason you need to understand this thing. Okay, what he is saying, he is completely.
In 1933,
Okay,
Hitler
what?
passed enabled married couples to obtain. In 1933, Hitler passed a law that enabled married couples to obtain interest-free loans, minimum 1,000 Reichsmark equals to 9 months' salary, to set up homes and start families. For each childbirth, the couple was allowed to keep 250 marks and did not have to repay it. Newly married couples with children received these generous loans repayable in 10 years, so they could buy a house or apartment. The birth of the first child would cancel a quarter of the loan. 4 children would cancel the entire debt. Over a 10-year period, a family with 4 children would earn more than the amount of the loan. In the eyes of the National Socialists, women were viewed as the preservers of the tribe, the guardians of future generations. Everywhere in Germany, houses and apartments were built for their workers. Villages of small single-family homes were set up. The monthly payments were set so low that practically everyone could afford his own house. All houses were naturally constructed according to the highest standards of public health. Before the end of 1933, Hitler succeeded in building 200,000 buildings in accordance with his building program. Within 4 years, nearly 1.5 million were built for the German people. The monthly rent for a worker was only about an eighth of his monthly earnings. The farmers' economic situation was also drastically improved. In 1933 alone, 17,611 houses were built for farmers. Within 3 years, 91,000 such houses were built. The National Socialists were the first to actively campaign against smoking and personally funded the Institute for the Struggle Against Tobacco. Germany became the first. 91,000 such houses were built. The National Socialists were the first to actively campaign against smoking and personally funded the Institute for the Struggle Against Tobacco. Germany became the first in the world to ban smoking on public transit. In 1937, his government enacted the first law which prohibited the sale of alcohol to minors and enacted stiff penalties for drunken driving. They also introduced the first blood test for automobile drivers suspected of driving drunk.
That's the reason. Go and study the history books. Because if you don't study the history books, you're never ever going to learn anything. Okay, because this thing is the most toughest thing to understand. Because we have been told all the lies about Hitler. Hitler was one of the greatest guys. Okay, except his actions on the Jews, that too, the Holocaust. Except his actions. Okay, because I condemn that. Okay, Holocaust, burning, Shola, Herbrim. Okay, whatever it is there. Because of the mistakes of the Jewish bankers. Okay, because of the mistake of the Rothschilds, everyone has been destroyed into pieces. So all these things were there because because of all these things we are serving the Satan. So that's the reason Hitler banned smoking. Hitler banned smoking. Hitler banned serving. Hitler banned serving the alcohol to the minors and the and all these are the greatest of the greatest things, which always remember. Hitler. See, okay, some of the Google information says that it is a debt money, but it is described as mephobills. Okay, mephobills. Okay, so this is the things. Okay, I don't know. Okay, what is mephobills and all these things. Okay, but I know one thing, that Hitler's intentions, okay, were for war also. Okay, Hitler's intentions were war also, because he has to repay every single thing through by plundering the nations, it is saying. Okay, now I don't know, okay, what these things they have done. Whatever the information I got, he banned smoking, he banned smoking, he banned serving the alcohol to the minors, he banned you know what, okay, the you know what, Hitler banned Hitler banned nudity and prostitution. Remember this thing. These things are very much toughest thing to understand. Hitler banned, exactly. So all these things, if you see it here, all these things, okay, some of the things are saying again and again. It's saying completely. You know what? Okay, it's completely saying. You need to understand this thing. Okay, I'm wrong. I think. Okay, it is saying it is there. Okay, I don't know. Okay, but I know about this guy. He improved the employment opportunities. Okay, autobahn works, and at the same point of time, his insistence was against the Jews. And you know what, he's saying this thing called as democracy. Okay, forget about all these things, but he knew the stock market was not good for the common people, and that's the reason. Even though his government was somewhat inefficient, but still it worked. It worked. It worked really hard, because I need to have the proof. Okay, where is the proof? I don't know. The Google is not giving me the proof. And okay, I can't rely on the proof of social media, because I need to have the proof from the main official websites. So okay, whatever it's there, it's there. So now all these things are very very important. And you know what, every single thing can be bought with this thing.
What if I tell you your boss doesn't pay you? What if I tell you
Okay, tell me.
you for your time? What if I tell you your boss doesn't pay you for your time? He pays you just enough to keep you showing up tomorrow. Think about it. If he paid you too much, you'd quit and build your own. If he paid you too little, you'd leave and find better. So he keeps you trapped in the middle, earning enough to survive, but never enough to escape. Hear me out, you see. They call it a job, but it's really a system. Your effort creates the wealth. Your boss collects the profit, and you get the scraps dressed up as a salary. And the trick? They convince you that a promotion is freedom when it's just a shinier cage with a higher rent. Now listen carefully. Your boss doesn't need you rich. He needs you dependent, because dependent workers stay loyal. What if I tell you your boss doesn't pay you when it's just a shinier cage with a higher rent? Now listen carefully. Your boss doesn't need you rich. He needs you dependent, because dependent workers stay loyal while free people walk away.
So that's now the financial systems are very very important in order to understand this game, because if you don't understand this game you are going to be completely down. So you need to understand these financial systems, and that's the reason I am here, to make you to understand the financial systems. Okay, I will tell you the financial systems right now. And these financial systems are the head of the snakes, and this snake you have to cut it for the bottom line, because he's saying right now, okay, he was saying,
If there was one physical, one material subject that we, if there was one physical subject, one material subject that we should focus on, in my opinion, it is very clear that the head of the snake is the financial system. We can argue till the end of time about who runs the world. Is it the Jesuits? Is it the reptilians? Is it the Illuminati? Is it the Freemasons? We can go on and on and on and on about this. But I don't think it is reasonable to even begin arguing about the mechanism that is used to exert this control. The mechanism is finance. The whole point of finance is to indebt, otherwise to enslave. What is a mortgage? I mean, what does that stand for? It's a death grip. So when you get a mortgage, you have a death grip held over you because you are in debt. You don't even own the house. The bank owns the house that loans you the money to buy the house, unless you're fortunate enough to have all the money to buy it outright. And even then, you can be taxed by the government. And if you fail to keep up with those taxes, the government can then take it from you. The whole system is based on a financial fraud, which effectively takes the power that we have and it gives it to a tiny group of individuals who are running the world through the control of finance. With the infinite supply of money that we have allowed them to take, they have literally an infinite supply of money, and with that money, and from their psychopathic point of view, they have bought everything and everyone who can be bought. So those of us who cannot be bought, because we operate on a level that goes way beyond the material, we are not rewarded for such behavior. We are punished for such behavior. And the most slovenly, disgustingly criminal, pedophilia, corrupt moral individuals, those are the ones that are rewarded in this system, which is upside down. We reward the pedophiles, we reward the corrupt, we reward the liars, we reward the people with no morals at all, and usually we compromise boys or little girls. If I was in charge of the world and I was a psychopath and completely drunk on my own power, you can bet damn sure that's what I would do. I wouldn't allow anyone in a position of power who wasn't completely compromised. When you have an infinite supply of money, you can do this. Take that supply of money away, take that power back, put it in the hands of the people, get rid of fractional reserve banking, which is an obscenity in itself. Anyone in a position of power who wasn't completely compromised. When you have an infinite supply of money, you can do this. Take that supply of money away, take that power back, put it in the hands of the people, get rid of fractional reserve banking, which is an obscenity in itself. Listen to the lessons of Jesus Christ. If you're a Christian who got really pissed off when he went to the temple and he saw what the money changers were doing, let's take back control of the issuance of money, and not just on a national level. I'm happy to see in Denmark that you have your own currency. You don't have the euro. But on every country's level, they should be issuing their own currency in a transparent, non-usury based way in which it really, truly benefits the people. And in that way, we can literally free ourselves of the banking debt which is drowning us all, and we can stop scrambling for the crumbs from the table of these filthy rich psychopaths and live in a state of abundance just by changing this one thing. And I'm not just talking about abundance for Western nations who have an artificially inflated value with their currencies. We all in the West are guilty of having that reward while the rest of the world is sucking on it. Every nation in the world can use a sensible financial policy to liberate themselves, to have world-class education, infrastructure, everything that a healthy society would require can be had in the worst, most corrupt African country in any part of the world. We can all have that if we simply change that one thing. John F. Kennedy did that about 6 months before he was taken out. He issued United States notes as opposed to Federal Reserve notes. I can assure you the powers that be knew the power of that act, and they took him right out. So the bottom line is, if we as people understand this very simple principle, just this one thing, change this one thing, we can solve every other problem you can name. I don't care what the problem is. I can bring it back to the financial system and an infinite supply of money for a bunch of psychopaths who are running the world, as opposed to an abundant supply of money for all of us. So in that sense, I'm very optimistic. This is not rocket science. I am not the smartest guy in the room. We can all understand this. And as soon as we do, we can exercise the same power that we had, but relinquished, and we can have a future for ourselves and our children. There's a lot to be optimistic about, quite frankly.
You will know what a fraud is being perpetuated against all of us. As we sit here in Britain, a prosperous country, or in America, or in Europe, as we sit here and these powers that be, these prostitutes posing as prime ministers, as parliamentarians, as congressmen and senators, who are these people? They're nothing more than prostitutes. And who do they serve? They serve the 1%. They serve the filthy rich. They serve those people that run the financial system. What is the financial system? And everybody here, most of you are Muslims, you've got to know one of the best things about Islam is there is no usury. Usury is haram, not allowed. Probably one of the great reasons why Islam is so vilified, one of many reasons why. Why is usury haram? Well, we know why it's haram, because it's meant to enslave people. But the short story, for those that don't know the financial system, incredible scam. Money has been allocated to those at the top of the pyramid. Those people are the ones that are allowed to print the money. In America, it's the scam. Money has been allocated to those at the top of the pyramid. Those people are the ones that are allowed to print the money. In America, it's the Federal Reserve. Here, it's the Bank of England and European central banks. These fraudsters are allowed to print money out of thin air, backed by nothing. Backed by nothing. And they were given that power by our corrupt, greedy, pathetic so-called leaders, whether they're prime ministers or politicians, all of them traitors with the rarest of exceptions. They have given the power on behalf of us, who they supposedly speak for these tyrants to be able to print the money. They then loan the money. They then loan the money to the banks at interest. At interest. We pay interest to people who print money, which we could print ourselves debt-free. And yet we allow them to do this. So they print the money, and then they loan it to the banks at which we own the interest. And they've had this fraudulent system in existence for many, many hundreds of years now. And this system is inherently debt-driven. The point of it is to indebt us, so that we have to pay more and more taxes to pay off a debt that can't possibly be paid off. Because the amount of debt that is created from the money that is printed, there is not enough money in circulation to pay off the debt. So there will always be debt. There is no way to balance the budget. We will always be in debt. So while we're having these so-called austerity measures being played out in front of us, while education is becoming far too expensive for most working class people to be able to send their kids off to university, while our social services are being cut, systems are being privatized, and you're wondering how you're going to keep a roof over your head or a job and put food on the table for your family, we are paying debt. To who? This is the one question. The one question when they talk about the debt and the need to cut social services and increase your taxes, why are we doing that? Because we're in debt. To who? Who do we owe the money to exactly? Do we ever think about that? Who do we owe the money to? I'll tell you who we owe the money to. The Rothschilds, the Oppenheimers, the filthy rich banksters that are running this system, that our corrupt prostitute politicians gave the power to these tyrants to do. You all have not worked hard enough. None of you have worked hard enough. None of you working class people out there have worked hard enough. You haven't worked hard enough, and you owe the Rothschilds money. And they're taking away your social services, and they're telling you you need to go fight a war. In Iran now, in Syria. And what do they do with the war? They make money off of us, again. And they send our sons and daughters off to war, to kill innocent people, to rape them, to steal their land. And all the while, with hypocrisy doesn't even begin to explain us talking about freedom and democracy. It is a joke, and it mocks all of us. And the head of the snake is the financial system. And Henry Ford rightly said, it's a good thing that people don't understand the financial system, because if they did, there will probably be a revolution by the morning. And it's true. We owe money to the filthy rich. That's who we're in debt to. They could say, we're going to wipe the debt clean. For me, that wouldn't be enough. Are you kidding me? You think you're going to get off that easy? For hundreds of years, you've been enslaving the people in your debt-driven system. And you think that you're just going to be able to wipe the slate clean and that's going to be it? Hell no. If you don't hang from a lamppost, you should consider yourself lucky for the scam that you have perpetrated on the... If you don't hang from a lamppost, you should consider yourself... Are you kidding me? You think you're going to get off that easy? For hundreds of years, you've been enslaving the people in your debt-driven system. And you think that you're just going to be able to wipe the slate clean and that's going to be it? Hell no. If you don't hang from a lamppost, you should consider yourself lucky for the scam that you have perpetrated on the people. And the thing is that they got us all by this system. They control the money. It's not even paper to them. They don't even need to print the money. They can simply go into a computer, type in a couple extra zeros in an account, and someone has got money. And this system that we're fighting against, you know, I've been working on things, and the thing that is one of the greatest challenges in trying to get things done is you need money. Well, guess what? Who are we fighting? Who we're fighting has an infinite supply of money. So we're forever fighting against people who can pay every corrupt person who can be bought. And that actually explains everything about the world and the way it functions. Our world is run by corrupt prostitutes, because those that can be bought are the ones that will be given the positions of power. And ideally, we like corrupt people who like little boys or high-class prostitutes, and we like to have videotapes of them, because from a lamppost, you should consider yourself. This world is one illusion after another. The illusion that was thrust upon me like all other Americans was this illusion of freedom and democracy. So how pathetic is it that we the masses, we have all this power, and yet we allow ourselves to be continuously divided. And how do they do this? It's one lie after another, but if there is a head to the snake, it is the financial system. This financial system, which is the most fraudulent scam in the history of our world, is probably responsible for more death and suffering than any other system. And I actually thank God that the people of the West are starting to feel the pain of the so-called financial crisis. I thank God for that. And I can't wait for it to get worse and worse and worse. And it will get worse. And at the end of the day, they try and make this financial system all this parade of so-called experts and economics people and all these people. Prostitutes more than anything else. Prostitutes who sell their soul to try and confuse us and use us. A short breakdown, because it's not complicated at all. And there's what a fraud is being perpetrated.
Now you have seen this. This game is not easy to understand. Because to understand this game, first you need to understand ABCD of economics, which you don't know in the first place. That's where you need me to understand this thing for you. So, we don't know anything, because I failed many times inside the banks. Okay, you need to understand, inside the banks, exams, I see, this is my name. You know, this is my name. Okay. And at the same point of time, I had a, you know what? Okay, some ups and downs. Okay, some exams I passed, and some exams I did not pass. Some exams I did not pass it. Some exams I did not pass it, and this is the exam I passed. I got 67 and I passed. Okay, and some of the exams I passed. This is the exam I passed. Congratulations. Yes, exactly. So this is the reason. So this is the reason which makes us question the integrity of the system, and that's the reason we need to question ourselves with these structures of economy. So, okay, so let us write these. Let's go for the proofs, because right now I'm saying these proofs are very much important. Okay, let's.
get satisfied. See, you don't see why, and you dog me round. Say, don't see why people dog me around. It must be that old evil spirit so deep down in your ground. Me bury my body down by the highway side. Me bury my body down by the highway side. Some of your old evil spirit, greyhound, busted ride. Some of your old evil spirit, greyhound, busted ride.
Okay, with this, I complete this system. Okay, I complete this thing, and I want to say this thing. And these systems are so much devil of humankind, and you need to understand these systems are not required for us, and that's the reason this system, okay, these systems will give rise to the debt cycle, which is going to enslave us through the world. Either we have to practice the debt-free money, or else you have to practice one single system of currency that we need to have for the entire world, because this entire world is enslaved in debt to someone else. So that's the reason this system had to stop, and that's the reason the bottom 90% have to revolt. Otherwise their entire future generations life is going to be completely like a dog only. Even I belong to bottom 90%, and even I am a dog like you. So that's the reason we are all dogs, and we have to make sure that we have to overthrow the gods who are sitting upon us, the top 10%. And then we can bring a new financial system where the value of our money is not going to be eroded over a period of time. Why we should go for such a system where our money is going to be eroded over a period of time? That is not, and that too in order to serve the top 10%. First of all, we are serving the top 10%, and we are making them the profits, and then these bastards, they want to erode the power of money, okay, outside also. First of all, inside also we are going to make the profit, outside also they are going to erode the power of money. Then it's not going to be accepted. It's not going to be accepted. Wrong is wrong, right is right. What is wrong, and what is right. And this is the thing, okay, we cannot risk our future generations lives, okay, because we are working from 9 to 5. We are working from 9 to 5 or 7. Okay, our future generations are working for, our ancestors have worked from 9 to 5 or 7. We are also working from 9 to 5 or 7, and our future generations are going to work from 9 to 5 or 7, and their future generations And okay, and the future generations of the future generations are also going to work for 9%, because this dog is going to chase the inflation bone that is never ever going to match it. And that's the reason we have to get rid of this system, and we have to get and say inflation and deflation is not at all required. And every single garbage definition, every single goddamn garbage definition which has been done, especially economics itself is a garbage. The concept of money itself is a garbage. The concept of money and economics itself is a garbage which is being developed in order to serve the interest and the asses and the skins of the top 10%, not the bottom 90%. The bottom 90%, that's the reason the landlord system is existing. It's a slavery without change. And that's the reason you need to understand we are in the matrix, and we are rats inside it, and we are the dogs who are chasing the bones. Okay, and that's the reason. And we are not going to get that bone. And at the same point of time, we are not going to, it's just like a mirage. It's just like a mirage inside the desert where there's no water there, but still we think that there is a water and we can get it. And that's the illusion. We have to come from the state of illusion to the state of reality, and we have to eliminate the system once and for all by uniting the bottom 90% against this goddamn evil systems. Otherwise it is going to otherwise the bottom 90% they are going to be the slaves for the rest of their life. With this I'm saying this, with this the bottom 90% has to make the choice. Do or die. Choice, or else have a voice against this thing. Avoid the digital ads, avoid everything. And then okay, then revolt. We won't work until you make the new financial systems for everyone. We won't work, I won't work, we won't work until you make the financial systems. That is what you have to say. Otherwise get lost. We will, yeah, okay, otherwise get lost. We are going to come and kill your okay assets only. We are going to destroy your buildings only. So that is what you have to say it. Otherwise bring the new financial systems. So we need to bring the new financial systems for this entire humankind. Otherwise it is not going to be working. Okay, we need to bring the new financial systems for okay bottom 90%, for okay, in order to save, in order to so that the blood, so the blood, so that the blood, sweat, pain and suffering does not become the liability inside the balance sheet. And we don't, okay, and we should not work for almost some 40 to 50 to 60 hours okay a week, and still we are not able to pay the taxes and bills and the groceries. Okay, it is not good. It's not good. And we have to thrive, we have to prosper, we have to flourish, we have to thrive, we have to prosper, we have to flourish. The life is not we have taken the birth inside the earth not to waste our time only in work. Okay, we have to explore and flourish. So that's the most important thing we need to understand. So if we don't understand the game, okay, if you don't understand this thing, okay, then I don't, that's the reason. That's the reason your entire life will be spoiled okay by working 60 years. And whenever and what after you save, if you want to go and roam, you don't have energy because you are having disease right now, and you are having disease, and you need to spend that amount on the hospital bills, and the doctors in order to survive for another 20 to 30 years. And that's the reason it's a scam. So this scam part is not required. So that's the reason. So whoever has constructed the system, they have constructed the system in order to make everyone quiet. So that's the reason I'm not a fan of this goddamn system. Never ever. Okay, bye. With this I'm saying we have to destroy the system. We have to destroy the system and bring an end to the system.